Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is the Echols Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Terrence Echols, and this episode is a very special episode. I get to have a great conversation with one of my very close friends and coworkers. His name is Andrew Polk. Andrew is a former Division III college baseball player and now currently works in the front office for the Cleveland Guardians. He works as a baseball information intern. We had a great conversation. We talked a little bit about college and all his experiences leading up to working for the Guardians and just baseball. And it was a great conversation, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Please, before we get into the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Please rate on 5 stars on Apple and Spotify if you can. And yeah, just support the podcast in any way that you choose. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoy it. Andrew Polk, man. How does it... So I'm just now learning about your own podcast that you had.
That's right.
Did anyone else on our team know? Like, did you tell anyone about it? Like, have you promoted it in any way?
No, it was pretty small time, Terrence, I got to admit. But first of all, thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah, I was in graduate school studying sports journalism and wanted to, flex some muscles, see what worked for me. And I had a passion for sports, and there was a lot of content out there about sports gambling, and there still is. And
right.
So I just had a little, 20-minute a week podcast about, different gambling tips and sort of teaching people about the, sports gambling in general, and then offering some advice. And I really enjoyed it. It was maybe a 6-month effort, and things got busy and priorities started to change, and I gave it up. But it's the first time I've been on someone's podcast,
right.
not new to the podcast space.
Got you. Okay, perfect. So since it's your first time on someone's podcast, let's take it way back. I'm talking like Bay Area. You're just starting out in sports. Like, what was your experience like as a little kid, little Andrew, playing whatever sports you played? I know you played baseball, obviously. Did you play any other sports? Like, what was that experience like?
Yeah, I played a lot of baseball. I started when I was 4. It was really the first sport I played. I also played a lot of soccer. That was sort of my number 2 sport. And I was a goalkeeper. And we started to take it seriously a little bit in middle school. Our travel baseball team was a bunch of 12-year-old kids who were kind of out of shape. We could bash the baseball and throw it hard, but our conditioning was not fit. And our coach was like, "Hey, let's start a little club soccer team and get the boys in shape in the off season." Right. So got into soccer through that, and I enjoyed it, but I also attempted to play basketball. But, not much there.
All right.
I always tell people the last year I played, my dad was the coach. We had 8 guys in the team, parish league ball, and there's a quarter minimum. You had to play a quarter for the game.
Yep.
And that's all I played. My dad was the coach, and that was it. So we all knew that was it. But
fair enough.
It was a lot of baseball, and I loved it. I was playing nearly year round. Growing up in Northern California, you can do that. So there was really no breaks. It was just all baseball. There'd be one season to the next, and I couldn't get enough of it. But heading into high school, I hadn't really hit the growth spurt yet, and I went to a school that had a pretty competitive baseball program, and kind of had to scratch and claw my way onto the freshman team. We had 3 teams, and I played a little outfield. But they would actually DH for me in left field because we had some pretty good hitting pitchers. You can't do this in the major leagues, but you can DH for whoever you want in high school. So I'd go out there, play left field, and someone else would hit for me. And that was my way on the team. I was kind of a glove first guy, and finally hit the growth spurt after my freshman year, and also started to take up pitching seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my next way to keep on the team. I was a kind of reliever on the JV team the next year. So I kept trying to, latch on to any team I was on, and really kind of came into my own pitching wise. And uh, at that point, junior year, I didn't play much.
Mm-hmm.
And but I knew that I wanted to keep playing past high school. So worked hard at it, had a decent senior year where finally playing time sort of came, and it afforded me a few college options to keep playing baseball. But sports were always at the center of my life growing up, and thankful to my parents that they kind of let me do everything, and it was a huge part of my childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it. And what kept you sort of motivated during that time, before you got your growth spurt, and, when you were like, I know, from my experiences and from my experiences now, especially being so close to travel baseball and seeing that firsthand, is a lot of times that kid that, is getting DH'd for, it's kind of just like, he plays a corner outfield position, not quite the best player, like has a good enough glove to get on the field, but not necessarily like if you can't hit at that level, it's kind of, your days are numbered. So what was it like, just sort of your mindset during that time period, and like how did you focus in and really dedicate yourself at that time period?
Sure. I think just being flexible. I wanted any way I could onto the field. I really enjoyed going out there, playing left field, and getting DH for it, because I got to play.
Right.
Some people didn't get to play, and I think it was just trying to find any skill that got me onto the field. And I think another motivator was just the social impact of playing on a team.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't be overstated. I'm an introvert at heart, and the baseball team was my social outlet in high school. So just being at practice every day with like-minded individuals, and that's one of the bigger motivators that can be. And then also, I would say, I think fortunately, you had some professional mentors in the Bay Area. I grew up a Giants fan, and it was a great time to be a baseball fan in the Bay Area. And
dude, you had it made.
Yeah, 3 World Series championships right as I was kind of coming into my own as a baseball player. So,
right.
Guys like Buster Posey, Matt Cain, Madison Bumgarner. I mean,
Lindsey Cohn.
Yeah, titans of the game in the Bay Area, and winners. And so all those factors, I think, and some internal drive. I think I just put my head down at some points and said I'll find my way onto the field however I can. So
yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the Giants being such a huge influence at that time. Just makes me think the only kids or baseball fans that had it better than you guys during that time period were Boston Red Sox fans. Especially ones born in the very late '90s who might have grown up in upstate New York, but were huge Boston Red Sox fans. Got to watch. You said you watched 3 World Series. Those kids got to watch 4. I'm just saying, especially their sophomore year of college. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I'm just saying.
It's it was a blessing. It was the talk at school, and my schools gave us the day off for the parade day. And it's like
that's awesome.
The whole city was just incredible. So yeah, I think it was a big influence on me as a baseball player, because there was something to look up to.
Right. And then later on, you get to watch the Warriors go through their dominance and dynasty in itself. And you're just like, man, like, you can't get much better than this.
No, an incredible run, and fortunate. And the 49ers are in it every year.
Right.
And they've yet to get over the hump. And I think that kind of keeps me in check a little bit. But an incredible sports culture, much like Cleveland in some ways.
Absolutely. And I think, if anyone's been watching and seeing how close the Niners have been each and every year, and seeing how they're able to get a lot out of players who you don't really expect from much from, and then also being able to retain and keep and develop guys who you'd expect a lot from at the same time. It's only a matter of time before the Niners, have their sort of run at a championship or two. But that would be funny if you have the Giants when you're a kid, Warriors as a teenager, and then as a young adult you have the Niners.
Yeah, I've been waiting.
Knock on wood for you guys, man.
Yeah, I mean, my dad, he was a Niners fan his whole life, so he had the 5 championships growing up.
Oh,
and
right,
it's just,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for my first, but
Yeah.
hopefully soon.
Forgot, Montana, Rice, Young,
Right.
all those guys.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. All right. I know you alluded to it at the end of when you're talking about baseball growing up. You had a few opportunities at college. It's actually a funny connection we had when I first learned about one of your first college visits, because it shares a city with the college I attended, which is Vassar College, same city in Poughkeepsie as Marist College. And when it blew my mind that you had been to Poughkeepsie, New York before. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about your recruitment and what that was like going through different colleges and trying to figure out, you eventually settled on Macalester, but like, what was that experience like figuring out which one to go to?
Yeah, so I knew as a high school junior I wanted to keep playing beyond high school, and I had thrown 5 innings that year for the varsity team. Oh. So wasn't a lot of tape out there, and no one was coming to watch me. So I sort of had to do it the opposite way and attend showcases, which cost money and time, but afford you the opportunity to get yourself in front of coaches for better or for worse. I was not much of a prospect. I was, throwing maybe high 70s, low 80s, and knew that Division I opportunities were off the table for me. I was 5'11", pretty skinny, whatever. But there are 1,000 college baseball teams out there. I just wanted to play for the one that was the right fit for me academically and also athletically. So there were some Division III opportunities I attended to showcase in Sacramento, California, where a lot of Division III schools from all over, including Vassar College, including Macalester College, the coaches were there. They got to see me. I pitched well that day, and sort of started the conversations there. So into my senior fall, those 2 schools invited me to come visit the campuses, and I went back-to-back weekends. So the first weekend, I went to Vassar. I went to Poughkeepsie. So, okay.
What was that travel journey like?
Well, that's the thing, Terrence. It's a 6-hour flight. It's an hour and a half drive from home, and that's a long way from home, man. Yeah. 3 time zones, and I really liked Poughkeepsie. I really liked the campus.
Beautiful.
Yeah, really beautiful. It's unlike living in sort of suburban Bay Area where there's a lot of people in a small amount of place, and I just didn't really vibe with the team, maybe the school too, and they were going through a coaching change. Their head coach position was vacant, and the guy recruiting me, it wasn't going to be his job. So who knows who would have walked in and hadn't seen me pitch. It was a little bit of a dice roll there. So then the next weekend I go to Macalester, St. Paul, Minnesota, 3.5 hour flight, 15-minute drive. It's a little closer, 2 time zones.
Right.
Multiple direct flights a day. You feel like you can jet home if you need to. And I was there in late September in Minnesota. It was 72 degrees and it was beautiful. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. And it was a great visit. The coach, Matt Parrington, he had been there for 20 years and just celebrated his 25th anniversary the other year. He's a legend there. So they liked me. They felt like I could contribute early on, and that's all I really needed to hear. And it was a decently well-renowned school and a place where I feel like would challenge me academically. And I think that's what ultimately made me decide. The decision between Macalester and Vassar was pretty simple, but then the decision was, well, do you sort of take this leap of faith, go to a smaller school, 2,000 kids undergrad, and have a guaranteed spot on a team, or do you uh, sort of cast your net wider, maybe some larger universities, maybe a little bit more well known, and then maybe have the opportunity to walk on or be a manager and probably not play. So that was a decision I had to make, but I wanted to play.
Yeah.
And they told me I could play and I could have a decent role to start. So that's what made me make that decision. And they wanted me to apply early decision, so it was the only school that I applied to. So that's something I reflect on actually a decent amount. Is, would I have gotten into school X, Y, or Z with my resume? Just you want to see where you'd end up, but
Right.
In the end, it was a great decision. So yeah, it was good recruitment. It was quick, and I was thankful because I hadn't really played much high school baseball, and for someone to take a chance on me. And I had a solid senior year of high school too, so that gave me some confidence that I could accept the challenge of college baseball. So yeah,
Big time. And I mean, that's such a great story. And it talks about, the challenges that you go through as a student or prospective student athlete in terms of just that final decision where it's like, am I going to take that leap of faith and, two time zones away and, you know, academically challenging, but also gives me an opportunity to play my sport? Or do I really just go after the school thing? And who knows, I know you're a Bay Area kid, high academic, so many big universities up there, Berkeley, Stanford, whatever is up there. Uh, Davis, right? That's another good school.
yeah.
That's
I didn't have Stanford or Cal grades.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you that. But I really liked Boston College.
Oh, really?
I thought I had maybe a chance there, and I was gonna give a shot at a Brown in Providence just for the heck of it,
right?
But like you said, you never know what's gonna happen there. But
Yeah.
I'm at peace with the decision I made. So, and I'm glad that I got to play. So
right, and I think getting that out in that those last final years of being able to play your sport that you grew up, you got inspired by the Giants as a kid, like you got to fulfill that dream of playing a college sport and give it all you had. I feel like because I did the same thing with basketball. It's like as much as you wish or think things would have been different had you given it up and really just went after your career or went after sports like right after high school, or went after school right after high school, it's always worth it to play that sport as long as you possibly can. So hey man, I personally relate to that. I personally understand it, and I love that for you, and I'm glad you got to live out those last final years. And plus, you got at least a taste of the bigger school aspect when you went to grad school, right?
Right. So I was at Macalester for 4 years, graduated from there with a economics degree, and but really, besides playing Division III baseball, my main extracurricular was working in for their sports information and broadcasting department. They needed students to broadcast the games. This is Division III, they don't have broadcasters, so
right.
They had one full-time sports information director, and he couldn't be at every one, and he's running around doing a lot of things. So I struck up a relationship with him from him attending our games, and
right.
I started with soccer and volleyball, and really got into basketball. I was the color analyst for 2 years, and then the play-by-play guy. Graduated, so got to do that my last year, and I really enjoyed broadcasting, and I wanted to stay somewhere connected to sports after school, and decided that the sports media realm was the way that I could stick around. So applied to a few graduate schools and ended up at Northwestern in Chicago. And
Very good school.
yeah, it was a great opportunity to study sports media and journalism, obtain a master's, and learn from some industry veterans, and get some real world experience. So it was just a year. It was a quick year. I was in Chicago for 9 months, and was in La Crosse, Wisconsin for 3 months, and sort of like a postgraduate internship working for the La Crosse Tribune, the local newspaper.
Wow.
As a sports reporter, reporting on everything.
Yeah.
Northwoods League, Summer League baseball, dirt track racing,
In Wisconsin.
high school volleyball,
Yeah.
anything under the sun. And
Wow.
it was a great experience, working for some great people. So yeah, and like you said, the big school experience, that was a nice little taste, because I was definitely in a bubble at Macalester, and for good and for worse. But it was nice to attend some Division I basketball games, and we were sort of off campus in a way. Our graduate school campus was downtown, which is
Okay.
maybe 25 minutes south of Evanston, where the main campus is, but still got to go up there a lot to do some radio work and attend a lot of baseball and basketball games. So I got my fill of the big school, and like I said, I'm introverted, and I think the small school aspect of Macalester was in the end a benefit for me.
That's awesome. I think, yeah, I honestly, we've known each other for almost 8 months now, and I didn't even know you spent those 3 months in Wisconsin. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was a great experience. It's a town of about 50,000 people, just on the border of Wisconsin and Minnesota. So western Wisconsin. The closest major city is the Twin Cities of Minnesota. So maybe 2.5 hour drive from there. And
Gotcha.
so not far from where I had went to undergraduate school. So it was a great place. I don't know if I would have liked it in the winter, kind of, it would have been maybe Poughkeepsie-esque,
Right.
But
Yeah.
It was great for the summer, and a nice little 3 month stay there. I've been everywhere, Terrence.
Right.
I was just talking with someone. I don't think I've lived in the same place longer than 12 months for the last 5 years. So,
Wow.
It's been bouncing around a little bit. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, man, like, I honestly respect the hustle, respect the grind, and I think, you keep doing what you're doing, it's gonna all pay off in the end. But let's talk a little bit about, geez, St. Paul to Chicago, or near Chicago,
Yeah.
Wisconsin, and then back to the Twin Cities
That's right.
to work for a team that I will not name. You can name it. I don't care. But to work for a team that, is a very reputable team. Like, got your, first real, like, is that your first professional sports experience working for the Minnesota Twins?
Yeah.
And what was that sort of experience like? Because, I mean, anyone who works in professional sports knows that first internship is the hardest thing to get. Like, that first foot in the door, then it becomes a bit easier, because then you are able to stack your, accolades. Like, I work for this team, I work for that team. But what was it like getting into that first internship with the Twins, and what was that experience like for you?
Yeah. So, like you said, it was really my first experience in professional sports. In college, one summer I worked for I guess I'll call them a semi-professional baseball team back in Northern California. They had about 100 people there a game. They paid their players $400 a month somehow. And I don't really count that, but
buy your groceries.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in California, who knows what that buys?
Yeah, you're right. So yeah, I packed my bags in La Crosse, Wisconsin, in about September of 22, and was looking for a job in journalism because that's what I had been doing the last 3 months, working for a newspaper, and I really liked it. And I tried hard at it for about 3 or 4 months to try to get a sports reporter job, and I really just couldn't find the right fit for me. I was going to have to go pretty far away from large civilization to start my career, and
wow,
I couldn't get myself to do it. And so while I was looking for those sports journalism jobs, I started to send some applications in for sports communications jobs. That's sort of the adjacent field. Yep. And an opportunity with the Twins came up to work in their communication department as a baseball information intern, and I applied, I think, in late September that year, and didn't hear back for a while, but I was able to get an interview, had a nice conversation with them, and they had 2 internship spots, and they offered me one of them, and it was an amazing offer because I could stay in the Twin Cities, which was and is my second home, and I could get my foot in the door, like you said. And it was a great year with the Twins. Like you said, a really well-run organization, and an organization that gives a lot of opportunities to people like me who didn't have a lot of experience. They have lots of internships and offer a lot of opportunities to college students and students like me just out of college. So working with some great people in their baseball communications department, and got to see it through to a playoff berth and a couple playoff wins, which they hadn't had in
huge,
over 15 years, which was crazy. So to sort of go through that experience with some of my bosses who also hadn't seen a playoff win was incredible. So, but I sort of fell in love with baseball information and communications. I think it was a great harmony between all the things that I had done previously in my life. You know, I studied economics, which was a lot of number crunching and problem solving in that way. And then being a writer, a sports journalist, this job's a lot of writing. And then also just being able to communicate, you know, being a broadcaster previously, and then baseball, which has been at the center of my life the whole time. So I really didn't have much experience or knowledge of the industry going in, and fell in love. So it was a 1-year gig, and they said, hey, if you want to keep doing this, Cleveland might be a good spot to continue. And that's why I ended up here.
Yeah. And, you know, we're glad to have you. I think you mentioned the Twins, and what do they call them? The Twin Turns?
That's right.
Yeah, dude. They were one of the teams, I think them, the Nationals, the Royals, and a few other teams at the time. Because I was applying for internships at the same exact time in baseball, who offered a ton of different internships, and, you know, basically every different department.
Right.
But, you know, with those, you know, it's a 1-year deal, you know, they want to bring in the next batch the next year, and it's basically just a learning experience. You have to take advantage of what you can while you can. I can't imagine what those game notes must have looked like, and, you know, pulling those, you know, first ever or first in 20 years playoff stats. Yeah. I can't imagine what that experience was like.
Yeah, that was exciting. You know, that stuff would happen in a playoff game that hadn't happened in 20, 30, 40 years. And, you know, it was a small sample size, admittedly, but it was really cool for stuff like that to happen. I think Royce Lewis had a couple homers in a game, and that had been a long time since that had happened in the playoffs. And yeah, it just a lot of fond memories from that year, and stuff that I won't forget.
I mean, even some more fond memories coming up this October, I hope.
Yeah,
And
I think according to people smarter than me, I think I've got like a 99% chance of going 2 for 2 with the playoff teams. So I'll
nice.
take it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And for those who don't know, I'm alluding to the fact that you now work for the Cleveland Guardians. And, if I'm going to be biased, it's going to be about that organization. I'm going to say it's obviously better than, any other organization. But, I'll let you, who's actually been in the building for both organizations, sort of, give and take what you want. But what was that experience like, jumping from internship to internship? Because we all know it's like, it's hard. It you know, and I'm going to speak, I don't know, I'm going to speak from what my opinion is, and you can have your own. But after seeing the way you work and from hearing from the people who you report directly to, it's high quality stuff that you're doing. And as someone who, went through an internship last year at the same time, I think you're deserving, more than deserving of, a full-time role in whatever organization you want to work for. But um, what's that like, having to go to Cleveland for another internship opportunity, something that you're already very familiar with, already sort of more comfortable with, and what was that transition like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it initially, once I realized toward the end of last year that I wasn't going to roll into any full time position, and that another internship would be beneficial. I think it was a gut check, admittedly. And but once I got here, I realized that it was needed to do a second year, and you just got to leave your ego at the door and attack the work. So um, yeah, like you said, there's definitely some differences in the organizations. They're both um, really high quality, and I think the one consistent thing between the two is the high quality people who run the organization, and that was evident in both places. I think they run their internship programs differently. I was one of 45, 50 interns with the Twins last year, and
Oh my God.
I think I started on my first day. There was like maybe 10 or 12 people starting with me in January, and then more came in February and March. And this year when I started, I was one of 5, and I don't think they've hired too many others. And so with that, with the internship program being smaller, I'm getting to do more of the work and be more involved and uh, have more of a stake in what's going on in my department. And while the work has been very much the same since last year, which was great because I had the experience, I'm getting to do more of it, and that's really been a plus for me. And then also getting a taste of the full lifestyle of working in baseball communications, the long homestands, the long days, and something that I only really got a small taste of in Minnesota, just with the way that they structured their internships. I was one of 2 interns in the department last year. I'm the only one this year, so there were some differences. And but this second year has been huge in my career. And with you saying, moving to Cleveland, sort of a culture shift. I'd never been here before, and for better or for worse, it's not the first time that I've picked up my stuff and moved to a place that I've never been before with people that I have never met before.
Right.
So I had some practice, and um, I'd like to think that I'm self-sufficient and uh, can, regulate by myself, and I don't mind it. So that was honestly, the transition there to a new city wasn't really the focus. It was just me, picking up the nuances of a new department and then running with that.
Yeah. And I think I speak for everyone in our department who thinks you're doing an amazing job. And um, yeah, dude, that shit. I know, most of the places that you've been over the past 5 or 6 years have been Midwest cities, big sports culture in each city, but I'm sure each one has their own quirks and their own, things about it that make that city unique or that make that city special. What would you what kind of advice would you give to someone who has been in your position or is going to be in your position where like you're just taking you're just going with the flow, taking opportunities, making the most of it, and then moving on to your next opportunity? What would you say to someone who's like having to bounce to all these different cities and sort of just you know pick up whatever you can pick up and try new things? And because I find that to be very admirable. I don't think a lot of people do that, take that leap of faith, move to that new city, start that new job, try that different avenue. And I think you found your calling in doing that. So what is that like?
Yeah, that's that's been the major thing for me the last 5 years, and I think uh, trying to explain it to people sometimes is hard. You know, I I studied economics, then I was a broadcaster, then I went to sports journalism school. Now I'm in sports communications. Might not be linear when you explain it to people, but for me, I try to look at it. I try to zoom out as much as possible and think about how this is sort of the timeline of my professional life that I'm looking at. And these moves seem massive when you're making them, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not as big. And I guess advice would be to just keep an open mind, but also making sure that every step you take is a positive step in your development, or at the least a lateral step. I think that's been the big thing for me. And taking a second internship, I think I wanted to go to a place where I wouldn't fall behind. I wouldn't do the same thing I was doing last year. And I was confident that the Guardians would offer that, and that at the very least it would be somewhat of a lateral step, but that's not what it's been. I feel like I'm making forward progress in my career. I
Oh,
feel
that's
like
awesome.
I'm uh, broadening my scope and making myself uh, more hireable to um, the next employer I work for. So, uh, like I said, I think you just have to zoom out and look at it as um, your whole career and trying to make forward progress
Right.
as best you can.
Yeah. And I think, in your early to mid 20s, it's the time to do that. And it's the best time to do that, as opposed to, say you sit and you work a job and you're in a place for a decade and you don't enjoy that job or you don't enjoy that industry or you don't enjoy what you're doing, you just stay in it, as opposed to, making those moves, growing as a person and as a professional and everything. So with all the moving in the Midwest that you've done and being here for so long, what do you miss most about California? And what's like the first thing you do every time you get a chance to head home?
Hmm. Yeah, heading home has been less and less frequent the last few years, just with the nature of the job. I feel like the last few years I'm home for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and maybe once more.
Yeah,
And it's really my family and my friends first and foremost. My whole my parents are there. A lot of my friends from grade school, from high school, still live there. So when I go home, uh, it's just trying to see as many people as possible in a short amount of time. So uh, that's the first thing for me. It was a great place to grow up, and I think I'd love to go back there at some point. I'm not rushing to get back there. Uh, for all of the good things of California, there are some drawbacks in terms of affordability for
Yeah.
your average 25-year-old. But yeah, I think it's the family, the friends, quality Mexican food. I think is the number two thing for me. I think that's one of the highlights of going home. Is
Okay. Are you a taco guy?
yeah, like
Burritos?
there's a good burrito spot where I grew up in San Mateo. Shout out Pancho Villa,
Okay.
great place for a burrito. And
Pancho Villa.
uh, yeah, so it's just spending time with family and friends. I still have my dad's parents still live in the area, as well as some aunts, uncles, cousins. It's just it's home, and I love going there as much as I can, but few
Yeah.
and far between. But I make the most of them.
That's good. And I think those quality visits it's so important to really prioritize that when you do get the opportunities to go there. And who knows, as you get older, you might get some more financial flexibility, XYZ, to be able to go home and see everyone more often. And I hope that for you, honestly, because um, at the end of the day, you could you could advance as a professional, you could advance as a person, but nothing's more important than being with those people
For
once you
sure.
get there. So that's great. I think, and also with all the movement that you've done, you you develop relationships and you pick up friends and you have bonds with all these different people. What is that like? How has your network grown in
Mm.
all of the opportunities that you've had?
Yeah, I think I look at it from uh, a professional and a personal lens, and it's sort of two sides of the stories. I think from a professional view, uh, it's awesome that I've dipped my toe into so many pools of people, and uh, I have so many quality relationships with people and people who I think are in my corner, and I think that's already shown that it's helped in my professional career, and uh, that's been one of the highlights of being in so many different places is meeting new people and picking their brain about what makes them tick and what they like about the industry and just personally too. I think uh, moving around all these times from a personal standpoint is a little tougher um, when you know that there's an end date and you know you're not staying. I think it's a little tough to uh, dive deep into personal relationships. I think I put up some barriers myself, um, potentially. I think I'm fortunate that I have a extremely great network of friends from back home, from uh, playing college baseball,
Mm-hmm.
where I feel fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I've got a great family and a great girlfriend. There's a lot of people um, who I am super connected to. And so when I go to these new places, I think it's important to interact socially with the people you work with. But uh, beyond that, maybe it's a little tougher to like dive deep into relationships for good and for bad. But uh, that's something that I look forward to whenever I uh, plant some roots in a place for longer than 12 months is to broaden that a little bit and um, develop relationships outside of work um, and outside of the existing networks. So,
Yeah.
um, but like I said, from a professional standpoint, it's one of the reasons why I've been able to make forward progress is just having all those connections. So that's
Yeah.
been a big benefit.
Yeah. Especially in this industry, like I'll be the first one to say it. Like the most some of the most successful people in this industry in sports are some of the most connected people you know. Um, my boss is a huge example of that. Like he's connected to everybody, but it's like, yeah, and I like that you have that like personal awareness of just like, I guess sometimes people look at others from the outside looking in and they see like, oh, that person doesn't necessarily connect with too many people outside of work. Like he or she goes to work, they interact with their people that that they spend time with. They're friendly, they have friends at work and all that stuff. But then they're like, oh, that we don't really like. Honestly, I'm of the school of do what fulfills you and fills your cup. Because I know you mentioned you're an introvert earlier. I'm a bit more. I'm a bit extroverted. I'd say, um, but like just knowing your nature and knowing who you're with and what fills your cup and what makes you feel most comfortable, like that's what I've learned is the number one thing is like don't let people take you out of your comfort zone if you know it's not going to be beneficial to you.
Right.
And that was my biggest learning, um, piece of learning, like living on my own, starting the internship here, moving to a new city, not even knowing if I'm gonna be here past October. um, but that was my biggest thing, and I learned like I don't want I'm not going to worry about how other people perceive me and say like, oh, you're going to be antisocial today or you're going to be XYZ today, or let others dictate your sort of mood or your personal feelings, just because like it felt good some days to just disconnect, talk to my people who make me most comfortable, parents, grade school friends, college friends, and not necessarily be like out there. Dude, we're in our 20s, bro. Like we have time.
Yeah.
And we're just figuring it out. So I'm glad you don't feel that pressure to like step outside and be someone you're not just because like, whether people think that or whether you think you need to change or anything like that. So
Yeah. It's a combination of that. I think I know myself, and I'm a shy guy, so it kind of goes hand in hand. But
right.
like you said, I think just having that self awareness is important.
Yeah. And you may be a shy guy at AP and you may be, soft spoken and to yourself, but I personally enjoyed speaking with you and getting to know you and, becoming friends with you over the past 7 months or so. And just in our conversations in passing, like we don't really do too much together in terms of work related stuff, but it's good to just have another person in the office that, um, is a friendly face, can always go to, can always talk to, and have good interactions with. So I appreciate you for being you, Andrew. I have a couple more questions for you before we wrap it up. This one's kind of a good one. And it's one that I think would be suited best for you just because you've done so many things in the sport. But what is your favorite baseball experience?
Ooh, like personal baseball experience.
Personal baseball experience outside of what's going to happen in a couple months for the team that we currently.
That's right. God, so I'm fortunate that about 9 different things just popped into my head.
Well, feel free, tell whatever story you want.
Yeah, I think getting a few minutes in the clubhouse after the Twins clinched the division last year, that's up there. I got a chance to play baseball in Europe for a week, going into college on like a little travel tour. That was a really neat baseball experience. Speaking of upstate New York, as a little kid, 12 years old, going to Cooperstown. Come on, doesn't beat it. Yeah. I think just being able to have a very small taste of success in college baseball, I think was the most fulfilling thing for me. I had to work hard at it, and I was pretty bad for a while. So I think just having a few games toward the end of my career where I felt like I belonged, I think that was a really enjoyable experience. And just getting to play with my guys. I mean, there's just the relationships that I made in baseball are second to none.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, so many things come to mind. Baseball's been so good to me. So yeah, and like you said, I hope there's more to come. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely, man. And man, no one wants this team to win more than me. And I wear it on I wear it on my face. I wear it on my sleeve. I wear it in my heart every single game, dude. It's so hard. How do you sort of manage the ups and downs that come with a sport like baseball,
mm-hmm.
where you play so many games? Some days you just don't have it. Like it could literally be you could play a doubleheader and one game could be the exact opposite of the other. Like it is one of the most unpredictable, like amazing, funny, stupid, however you want to describe it, whatever word you want to use. How have you handled that? Just being around the sport for so long.
Yeah, I think I've seen most of it, Terrence, being connected to the game for a while, where and I've lived a lot of it. So I think just being on so many different teams of varying success levels, and then also being in a lot of different roles personally on baseball teams.
Mm.
I think that helps me ride the wave a little bit. Even in college, I was on a playoff team. I was on a team that was 20 games under 500, and um, as a as a college player, I was a number one starter, and I was a 12th guy on the depth chart. So, uh, getting to experience all of those different dynamics of the team, and then also um, personally in terms of your role, I think I can sort of empathize with certain people on the team and also aspects of the team when you're riding that high, when you're stuck in a rut. Uh, I think it just helps having lived those from time to time on various teams throughout the years. So uh, yeah, and I still go through it. I'm a competitive person, and like you said, I care a lot about the team that I work for, and uh, sometimes that involves some tough days where you maybe let the way that the team plays on the field maybe affect how you feel, which I think in the grand scheme of things probably isn't good, but we care,
Yeah.
and that's what it comes down to. So um, yeah,
And what I appreciate the most, and I normally don't like to talk too much about our current team and what it is, but I what I appreciate the most is how much effort and how much passion and how much love for the game that you're seeing from this year's version of the Cleveland Guardians. And they've given us so much to be grateful for, so much to be happy for. And when I put it all into perspective, like this season has been, regardless of how it ends, like this season has already been like one of the best sports seasons of any team I've ever been involved in, anything I've ever seen, some of the best games I've ever seen in my life, some of the best crowds I've ever seen in my life, some of the best people as players that you get to know and learn and watch, and you get to see them develop. A guy who struggled last year is doing great this year. A guy who was struggling earlier this season is doing better now, or guys going up and down. And
yeah,
yeah, I think it's an exciting time to be, a member of this organization, and I'm glad we get to do it, with an amazing group of people.
yeah,
Everyone in our department is solid people.
yeah. I love riding the wave every day. I mean, baseball is truly the best in that way. That it's just different, and there's something there every day to motivate you. And yeah, I hope I stay connected to this game as long as possible because it's given me a lot. So
Big time.
yeah,
All right. Last question for you before I let you go is going to be, if you could talk to yourself, how old are you? 24, 25,
25.
25? You could talk to 20-year-old Andrew.
Oh,
What would you tell him?
20 years old.
Was that COVID? I feel like that was COVID.
Yeah. So I turned 21 August of 2020. So,
So you're in the thick of it
yeah,
for a majority.
Basically August of 2019. Well, that year I was starting my junior year, and I had been given a lot of playing time on my college baseball team, and pitched terrible. It just is what it is. We were thin and needed guys to eat innings, and I barely did that. And I was kind of at the precipice of hanging on to my roster spot and into the fall. At least that's how I saw
Right,
it.
yeah.
Some people maybe told me, no, you were fine. But we were making some roster trims, and I hadn't pitched good. So I felt like I was kind of pitching for my job. And I think I had a mindset that day and that year just to take it one day at a time and win every day. That was a big mantra for our program. And I think I would tell my 20-year-old self to do that and to stick with that mantra in your whole life. I think that's at the root of me, is just to win in every aspect of life. But also, I think I would tell myself to enjoy as much of life as possible at the same time. I think I'm very focused on the task at hand, and I think that is who I am, and is great in some ways, and it helps me perform. But also, I think there's times where I can maybe step back and just kind of enjoy life. And I think striking that balance, I think, is something that I've gotten better at over those 5 years. But if I could have a little, repeat to maybe tell myself, hey, keep at it, but give yourself some time to step back and look back at progress made and enjoy the people that you're with. So, yeah, that was quite a year. I ended up pitching pretty good that fall, and I was heading into the spring, maybe with a rotation spot, probably some higher leverage relief somewhere in there. Pitched in one game in February. We had to play some games at US Bank Stadium where the Vikings play.
Oh, nice.
They turn it into a little baseball diamond in the corner of the end zone.
So they still do that, because I know with the old dome in Minnesota.
Yep, they did that. So the University of Minnesota plays there, and then they let the Division III teams play there like late at night, early in the morning. So played a couple of games there. Pitched okay. It was gonna, factor into the team that year, and then everything stopped. So, but it ended up being a solid year of personal development, I would say. So, yeah, good question.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you still made something out of it.
Yeah.
And,
I got one for you. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Can we flip the script?
Yeah.
All right. I'm interested because we were both involved in college athletics. Like, what was the most challenging thing for you, and what was kind of the one thing you took away from that experience?
Oh my gosh. I guess changing my mentality, and quite frankly, just killing my ego. Because I went to school with the mindset like, oh, I'm going to walk on. I'm going to be, on a Division I basketball team. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. Show up. There's 3 walk-ons, same year as me, who already have guaranteed spots. So I'm showing up to the tryout like with the mentality that, I'm going to do my best. Yep. But the reality was, unless I was prime Michael Jordan, there wasn't going to be a spot for me. So that was a real shot to my ego. And you had to put that aside and just be like, is this something I really want? Because now there's a huge roadblock and a huge excuse for me to say, I'm I'm good. I did my best at basketball. I really tried my hardest. Certain circumstances prevent me from doing that. Let's just give it up.
Yeah.
It was a great run. But, with the death of my ego, and granted, you still have an ego, but you just have to, you just have to like yank it down.
Yeah.
With that came the true me who loved basketball for the fact that it was basketball, who loved the competition of it, who loved the daily fundamentals that you have to work on in order to improve, who loved being with teammates and having that camaraderie. So really, from really like all of the reasons why I wanted to be a walk-on in the first place and why I wanted to go to Marist to play basketball, I had to kill those reasons and develop and really reveal
bring out
those new reasons.
They're there. Yeah.
And once I did that, things started changing, started to get in for this drill, started to get in for that drill, started to practice a little bit more, started to, some things started rolling my way, and I just went back to my love for the game and, all that. And, I ended up living, a few years of the best years of my life and, being able to play Division I basketball, fulfill a lifelong childhood dream. So that was probably the biggest challenge and my biggest takeaway from college and college athletics.
I love it.
I appreciate that question.
Yeah.
It's hard to sometimes really like conceptualize and make that sort of understanding. But as you're asking that question, I was like, what was it? And then I was like, boom, right there. Awesome, dude. Well, I feel like we've won the day.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
day, man.
I appreciate you coming on. Andrew Polk, anything you want to promote or anything? Anything you want people watching to know?
I gotta know how to subscribe to your podcast.
Oh,
Let's go 5 stars.
Thank you, dude.
Let's run up the downloads.
Oh, you're the man.
That's my promotion for the day.
That's it? Okay. Yeah. No social media or nothing?
Barely, man. I post once on Instagram every year.
Okay.
Just a little yearly recap. Hey, here's what I did this year. But nah, man.
All right. Cool, man.
I run under the radar.
Hey, I respect it. I respect it 100%. All right. Thank you for watching.
I prefer really not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble. And I don't want to be in big trouble.